but we've got a sort of center slide which we're going to use to kind of, and then you guys can decide which direction we go, and we'll go from there. Right.
Also, I think we can now do chat. Everybody can do chat with the latest Microsoft update. So if people want to have chat or raise questions or do any of that kind of stuff in the session, feel free to try it out.
Oh, cool.
Right, okay, so let me forward. So first of all, we have a free all access pass donated by the guys at Pab 265 for GlobalCon 4, which is in about 14 days time. So this will give you access to all the content after the event. So I think they have it on for a short period of time, and then you have to have an all access pass. So we'll do a competition. It's probably going to be a random draw out of a hat type thing at the end of the session, and then we'll share who wins based out on the people who attend this session, I think. So yeah, that should be good. So we are the Power Platform user group. We're going to, we're just trying to help share knowledge about the Power Platform and Microsoft 365 platform. We're always looking for people to come and speak for us. So if you've got something which you want to talk about, then please let us know. We'd love to get you come and speak. We're a very friendly group, so I think we're quite a good introduction to speaking in the sort of Power Platform Microsoft 365 world. And it's us four who look after it all. We've got a number of different ways you can sort of keep up with the Power Platform. So we've got a Twitter account, ppug_leads. There is a Power Platform ug.com, which we don't really use. Meetup is our primary way of sharing what's going on. And we've been doing these lockdown sessions. Is this number 12? Is this 11? Yeah, 11, isn't it?
It's 11, yeah.
Yeah, so we're trying to do these every 2 weeks. So the next one will be the 20th, I think, if my maths is correct.
Which is pretty amazing, really, considering we've managed to keep this up.
Yes, yeah, I think we've done well. Yeah, pat on the back for us. So yes, the 20th of October, we don't have a topic. Be interested if anybody's got something which they would be interested in hearing more about. There's one around sort of using Excel scripting, because that's a new thing which went GA maybe 3 weeks ago. So I don't know, but yeah,
it's very topical. I thought you were joking for a second, but you were. Yeah. Which file format to use?
Avoid fucking mistakes.
Exactly, using Excel scripting to manage COVID. Yeah, sounds like a good idea. Right, well, let's crack on then. So this is our agenda. We've got what's that, 12 slides. So yeah, we're gonna pick. I guess we're gonna pick Power Platform, but who, what would people like to hear first?
Teams.
Thank you.
All right, Teams it is.
There's lots of announcements, wasn't there?
That didn't quite work. All right, Teams. That didn't quite work, guys.
Did you just? Well, don't know why that didn't work.
All right, okay.
Too many slides.
Oh, yeah, 56 to answer your question earlier.
Yeah, it's quite a bit.
Right, so I guess I'll kick off, but everyone can contribute, and if anyone has seen something which seems to be missed, let me know. I think quite a lot of us attended the various Ignite sessions, or those bits of Ignite that we could figure out, because the logistics for finding the sessions wasn't as good as it could have been. Thankfully, quite a few of the MVPs put out material afterwards, and we've unashamedly lifted from their summaries. In no particular order, I think one of the first things that struck me was the new home site app. So Microsoft recognized that lots of people are trying to spend their entire time living within Teams, and part of that means how do you pull your intranet into Teams? And some people are taking the view that you don't, you just design Teams to be your intranet, and others are wanting to pull the content over. So Microsoft are introducing, I haven't seen it yet, are introducing this home site app that lets you mount in your left rail a direct link into your main homepage of your intranet, but that intranet page continues to run full screen inside Teams. So that's the home site app. Be interested to see what that gives us when it arrives. Next up was the introduction of something that's been promised for a little while, which is Teams templates. That's the ability to say, I want to roll out a predefined template with a set of tabs and channels for a particular purpose. Microsoft are going to come up with a bunch of those that we preloaded. I suspect they'll be rubbish, but that might just be me. But there is the ability to then go and create your own dedicated templates and have those deployable. Not really sure when that customized templates will be available, but the other stuff is pretty soon. We will see the roadmap in a minute. There are a bunch of upgrades to the info pane. That will give you a bit more information than you get at the moment when you're in a Teams channel. It will give you some sense of activity within a channel or a Teams area. Almost very excitingly, they're introducing the new search experience, the new Microsoft search capabilities into the Teams search. And when this was announced, some of us were really excited they might actually be bringing proper graph-driven, enterprise-wide, all of Microsoft 365 search. But so far they're not. The announcement was really just about bringing in a better Microsoft search-based experience within Teams. So you can use that to look up content and conversations within Teams, but no word yet on using the Teams search to reach out and pull up information from Planner or email or OneDrive or anywhere else. For those people that are into Yammer, quite a bunch of announcements about better Yammer integration. So that's quite good, I guess. I think there's an uneasy relationship that Microsoft are continuing to try and explain between the deep capabilities of Teams and the allegedly lighter capabilities, I'll get you in a minute, Gary, of Yammer. Yammer is positioned as the I don't know who to ask, so I'll ask lots of people. And Teams is positioned as the I know who my team is, I'll ask them. But you know, where that overlap, where that grey area in between isn't entirely clear. Gary, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just on this, there's quite a number of announcements around different integrations with Yammer and Teams and SharePoint. So there's a big push here now that they know that people are still working in all the three different platforms, and there is a push to now and try and make them a little bit more joined up. I think the Yammer one is probably the most confusing one because you could, say Yammer is social, Teams is social, but it's good to at least have those options there for customers who are using Yammer because it can feel a bit out of the way. Some people are using it, others aren't, so it kind of gets forgotten about sometimes. So it's good to at least see, and that the platforms are kind of getting a little bit closer.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I actually think there is a good story between Yammer and Teams. It's quite a nuanced one that lots of organizations just don't get. So, yeah, the integration is always good. Just go back one slide, please, Simon. Lovely. Okay, as you can see, that's straightforward. The maximum size of a team is now 25,000. They did have I spoke to one of the engineers last year. There was this thing about you can only, at that time, have 5,000 people in the all-company group. And they said they've got a background clutch that will let you merge 5 of those together to get a 25,000-person team. And they've obviously rolled that out. Whether it's still a clutch behind the scenes is unclear. But we can at least handle much bigger enterprises where they need to have we just need everybody team, which is great. I don't know what they do about an organization the size of Microsoft, but 25,000 is a pretty good start. There's a lot of this stuff around virtual commute. They made a huge play at Ignite about well-being and mental health and all that kind of stuff. And I felt that quite a lot of that was quite honest, but they come up with this idea of this virtual commute where you have some time at the beginning of the day and some time at the end of the day when you can do your reflection, your thinking about what's going to come up and what's going away. And they've got this idea that they're going to be able to integrate that into Teams. How real? No, real is not fair. How effective that will be is yet to be seen. I'm interested, but I don't really know. Garry, go ahead. You've got your hand up again.
No, I just didn't take my hand down.
Okay, that's
Carry
good.
on.
Right, that's easy. So I'm interested to see what they've got. That they certainly did. They have been doing really a lot of work around doing research into the cognitive load and a whole bunch of other things around why Teams meetings and their equivalents are comparatively tiring. So I've been looking at that research myself, and there's an article which I've got coming out about that as well. But it's an interesting space and great to see Microsoft throwing some meaningful amount of research at understanding it, given it's the world we are now living in. And I guess more of that same question. They've also done this announcement about partnership with Headspace, who I've never heard of before, but they actually help a load of people with meditation and mindfulness breaks, whatever the heck mindfulness is. I still don't really get it. But if that's your thing you're into, you're going to have that integrated into Teams, which I guess, if that's the thing you're into, is kind of cool. Right.
There's an interesting point there that Microsoft might be acting cynically because you think about American corporations, if they don't stop something happening in 10 years' time, they open themselves up to being sued for something happening. You know, think of tobacco companies and all these other things. So basically, if people claim they've gone nuts in 10 years' time now, and the reason their mental health was destroyed was because they spent all their time on video calls in Teams, they may open themselves up to liability.
And if this was 7 years ago, I would be the first to agree with you, Dylan. But I really do get the sense that Microsoft is a different kind of organisation, Satya. And so I'm going to reserve my cynicism for other parts of the US.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, but they are obviously protecting their own interests by doing so, because you can see where this leads, can't you, in a litigious society?
Yes, indeed.
So I've been using Headspace quite a lot through, especially with COVID. It's really interesting about, and it all comes back to this digital resilience, doesn't it? About giving yourself a break and not working all the time, not burning your team out. It comes back to how does an organisation kind of protect its staff from working too much. So I think it'd be interesting to see what they do and how much kind of AI they can put in and sort of say to you, do you know what, you're spending like so much more time than all your colleagues out of hours, that sort of thing. So giving yourself permission to take a break, I think it's really interesting.
So I'm just going to do a quick straw poll of the people here. Stick your hand up if you have used the Exchange feature to reduce the length of your meetings automatically. Of course, I actually probably mean put your digital hand up, since I can't see everybody's video at the moment. I've put my hand up digitally. Okay, so I'm seeing a few people. I strongly recommend that you have a look in your Exchange settings, and there's an option to automatically reduce a 1 hour meeting to 50 minutes or whatever it might be. That's made a real difference to the way I've been able to get through the day.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I've had that turned on. The only thing is, when you get that extra 5 minutes, don't try and go, oh, I can do this thing in 5 minutes, because it'll take you longer than 5 minutes, makes you late for the next meeting, which I've done numerous occasions this week.
Yeah, I mean, you apologise for being late, having not had a break either. So, totally.
Exactly.
Maybe this is something we could do a topic on later, given that it's a sort of a breaking topic, is about the virtual commute, mind space, mental health, good practice stuff. So
the other thing you need is a remote kettle switch.
Yes.
So you can activate it 2 minutes before the 5 minutes starts, and then you can dash and grab your cup of tea and get back.
The remote kettle's easy. It's the remote fill the damn kettle and put the tea bag into the teapot that's difficult. So.
Yeah, and then you've got bathroom breaks as well, and that's hard to do remotely.
Yes. Well, that's what bags are for. Anyway, moving along, Simon.
A bit like the Sports Direct workers bottle under the desk. Don't want to leave you.
Exactly. Right, so a bunch of new Together Mode scenes were announced. So when they first announced Together Mode, there were slides there about a whole bunch of different types of ways of doing the Together Mode, and now they've said that this is starting to roll out. So they've announced coffee shop and conference room. But the one that was more interesting to me, because again I think it plays to the cognitive load, the tiredness, is that they're going to automatically use AI to try and get people to be the same size. So if I'm sitting here, I'm still only the same size as the rest of you. And if I'm sitting, so they're going to automatically scale and center participants in the together mode. I've been using together mode a lot in actually one of my D&D sessions, and it makes a huge difference to how easy it is to keep engaged with everybody in the digital room. So I'm a big fan of together mode. They're also at last introducing the ability to have a slide deck like this, but have the speaker and their video superimposed over the slide deck. We haven't got it yet, otherwise we'd be using it tonight. But that's a really nice feature and coming soon. So you'll be able to see both the speaker and the thing that they're presenting all on the same screen, which is much better. Can anyone remind me what meeting custom layouts are? Oh, no, meeting custom layouts. I have got that. So the presenter or the meeting owner is going to be able to start to control what the what the participant experience is. So I'll be able to say, I want you to be in together mode or whatever, and that will be the way that you see it. I think it's partly to have consistency, but partly because some people just don't know which buttons to press, and you can define it for a meeting. Breakout rooms is coming. That's important. I had to work with a client around that about a month ago. They desperately needed a breakout solution, and I had to show them how to try and craft that using channels in Teams. The proper breakouts are coming. Some of these things are absolutely, unequivocally a response to what Zoom is doing, but that's nothing like that. The other thing which I think is kind of cool is at the end of these meetings, the AI will be automatically putting together a recap of the meetings. So it will have grabbed the audio, created a transcript, given you chats, and pulled it all together as a package that everybody that attended will be able to go and access to refresh or store what it was that they just found themselves agreeing to or whatever. And then following that later, they're coming up with a proper management suite for webinars. So the full sort of 10,000, 100,000 people in a webinar mode is pretty good, but it's way behind some of the other platforms in being able to automatically issue invitations, manage attendees, all that stuff's coming, but they're going to charge for it, which is, I guess, is fine. And then if you're fortunate enough to have the money to buy some of the hardware, there's a whole bunch of new Teams hardware coming, including Teams displays, which are Cortana-enabled hardware to be able to walk in and go, Cortana, fire up my meeting with Dave and Pete, and it will do that, or schedule a meeting now. So all that stuff's coming. So that's cool.
That's cool.
Next. Actually, I don't know so much about this. So this is more of the UC, Unified Communication side, but they've got some stuff around collaborative calling and being able to do call queuing within Teams. Again, not my area of expertise. They are bringing the meeting features that we enjoy in scheduled meetings and channel meetings into one-to-one meetings. So if I want to fire up an ad hoc call with Dylan, I don't have to forgo some of the things I like. I'm able to use in group calls. That's cool. They are improving the stream playback performance and enabling that for external access. External access for streams has been something we've been after for years now, and finally they're bringing that. I wonder whether that's linked to the other thing about stream that we'll get onto in a minute. There's a bunch of new APIs, including an export API, and again, these meeting extension points, so things you can do before, during, after meetings. Right, Garry, fire away.
Yeah, so you mentioned about the stream stuff. That is direct change to where the storage is going to be, because that's going to move into SharePoint OneDrive storage. The Teams export API, I think, is a bit of, if you saw the news recently, there was a company that managed to delete all the history of their chats through a DLP policy. There was no way of backing those up and no third-party solutions to do that. That, I think, is a direct it's reason why that's come about, so that you can actually back things up. The meeting extension point, so this is kind of more about the extensibility of Teams. So we've got apps and all that kind of stuff that we can do, but now there's more points where you can hook into like the meeting end events and basically customize your meeting experience within your organization. So that's interesting to see that there's some development hooks kind of appearing in there as well.
Yeah, the stream stuff is really driven by universities because they can't share the videos and out with their external people, especially if they do collaborations. So I know a few like Leeds University were moaning about that to Microsoft.
Will it impact storage quotas?
Well, yes, but it always did.
Yes.
Screen content was always part of the SharePoint storage allowance.
I thought I read that it wasn't going to.
Oh,
I thought that was the thing, because I thought Stream was a different storage capacity, and I think the question was, will this impact SharePoint and OneDrive SharePoint storage? And I'm sure I read that it wasn't.
I have to go and check that. That's
But I
interesting.
have no idea how they would segregate that in
I mean,
SharePoint.
it would make sense that it will, again, we'll get onto it, but it would make sense that it's a site collection in its own right for the storage of the video. So you've automatically got the 1 terabyte, and they may just give you that 1 terabyte for free. Beyond that, I suspect there'll be limits.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I agree.
Dan, did you hear anything else?
Yeah, there was other heard. I think it was New Habits podcast. I heard that the one-to-one calls can be recorded now. So I was thinking maybe your meeting with your manager that could be recorded if it was done that way.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's what the one-to-one call features or meeting features include. Yeah, you'll be able to do captioning and recording and everything else.
Correct. Yeah. Well, for good or ill.
Yeah, absolutely. Although at least you know it's being done, unless of course you're in H&M. That's a different conversation. So, right. And if you just go to the next slide, Simon, I think there's a couple of screenshots that I managed to pull out. So there's the slightly awkward-looking. I don't know if that's the coffee shop view.
Yeah, looks like it.
So that's a small groups of people having in theory, a social get together. Who knows how that will end up being worked, but it's quite nice. And then there's the video overlay, so you can see the presenter and what it is they're presenting. So again, I'm a big fan of that. I think we lose quite a lot by having these tiny faces in the bottom and not being able to see the presenter as they're articulating and expressing themselves. God, I just remember what this is. Oh, this is the post-meeting information pack. So the recorded stuff, the transcript, the notes, all that kind of stuff. That's all here. And this is breakout room. Thank you. I'm glad I put these on because I wouldn't have remembered otherwise. So this is a breakout functionality, and it works exactly as you would hope, which is that you've still got the owner of the meeting is able to manage these and bring people back in, check out how people are doing, and then close the breakouts down when it's time to bring them back into the main meeting.
The bit on the right-hand side is an example of a meeting extension point as well. So that's how it will look. You can have a task pane, so you might have polls and things. I do think the meeting extensions are could be quite interesting. See what products people come up with.
Cool. And is there any more slides? Let's have a look.
There's the Headspace stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there you go. And again, they are spending a lot of time trying to think about this personal and team well-being, which is kind of cool. And that's it. Back to slide 8. You can just press keypad number 8.
Oh, can I? Oh, thank you.
And then I think you hit return or something afterwards.
Oh, okay, let's do that.
Well, it works on my machine.
Maybe not maybe when you're presenting through Teams. I don't know. Anyway,
Okay.
Where are we going next?
It's got to be Power Platform.
Yeah.
Do it.
Oakdale.
Yeah. I'll go to this one if you want. So I guess the first thing, they've all got new icons. So Power BI, Power Automate, and Power Apps all have funky new icons, which of course they need to because it'll cause more branding issues again. Although they've not updated the iOS app, so for what I saw, it's still the old version. They've not updated that one, but in terms of Power Automate, so there was more announcement about the robotic process automation, RPA. So there's now this Power Automate desktop. Thank you, Larry. There's also Power Virtual Agents in there. Did that also get a new icon? Don't know if I've seen that one. Maybe that's because it's out of my price range, but there we go. So there's now a desktop app for you to build effectively flows that can run on your machine. Interesting on this one, I like it but don't like it at the same time. One, it's going to keep a lot of legacy applications still there, and there won't be the need to get rid of them. But I can see that it's going to be useful. The only other thing is the cost of using this. It's very expensive. You can get a trial, but there's no free tier for this. I think there's a per user and per app kind of approach. I think on the next slide we've got some information about that, but it is very expensive. Power BI, there's a new license that's appeared, and this is to bridge the gap between organizations who have so Power BI Premium. So Power BI Premium is only available for the organizational level. So you have to pay I think it's £4,000 a month for dedicated capacity, which is the lowest cost. But to get the premium features, you have to license the whole organization. This allows a lower tier so that you can just license a group of individuals. So it's like Pro Plus, but for specific users. So it's good to see that that Power BI is becoming a bit more accessible. It's still very expensive, and there's still lots of kind of caveats to the licensing. But it gives you another level to go to without having to license the whole organization and trying to find $4,000 a month. On that, they've also released some deployment pipeline. Daniel's asked the question: is it still included in E5? So you're referring to to Power BI Pro, which is included, but that's not premium. Pro allows you to create a report and share that with other individuals within the organization. So if you've got E5 across the board, everyone's licensed as Pro. These kind of the premium features are more along the lines of where you've got dedicated capacity to have more frequent refresh cycles of your data. So if you want live refreshes, things like that, you have to have the dedicated capacity and pay for that. So that's only been accessible at the organizational level, but now it can be at the user level as well. New deployment pipelines. So this is, you can build your Power BI report and you can use automated pipelines. So Azure DevOps, I think there's actually GitHub Actions now that you can use to move your reports and dashboards into different environments and variabilize them. One really big announcement, and I didn't expect this at all. I think Simon Doyle, you also got a bit excited about this one from the developer side.
Absolutely.
From the Power Platform, is that they've announced that the Azure API management connectors in Power Apps are going to be available to use without additional cost. Now, this is quite a big thing because this now enables organizations to create centralized APIs, so developers can create an API layer, and then citizen developers can use that at no cost in their Power Apps. I think maybe it might be Flow as well, but I've definitely seen Power Apps.
Yes, Power Platform.
Yeah. That's I see that as a really big thing and a real big change. I hope that this isn't an intermediary because they've done this before. It'll be the only Azure connector that is not premium. All the others were made premium about a year ago. So I hope it's not just a here you can use this and we'll license you later.
It's a bit of a gateway drug, isn't it, into Azure as well? So I think it's quite an interesting play for them actually.
Yes,
they'll be able, they will get you will have to have an Azure subscription, and so I think it's a good way to get you started.
But I think sorry, go.
Yeah, which APIs would you get? Just the management APIs, so you could spin up other Azure services, but you couldn't actually talk to those services in that free license.
You can talk to anything behind the API management. So
if you're not APIs. yeah, if you're not aware of what API management does, is that say you've got lots of different services in your organization, and you just want one layer to sit over the top.
Mhm.
API management is that layer. So you can set up throttling limits in there, you can set up subscriptions, all that kind of stuff. So people can really consume an API that you run and then be able to access the data. And that might be data that's in a SQL database. It might be an Oracle database, but from the consumer side, they don't really care because they're just calling an API, right? So it does open up so many different opportunities. Which was another thing of wow, they've really kind of put this wide. I think from that announcement.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's great.
Yeah, it sounds too good to be true, actually.
It does a bit, yeah, but it is true. It's there, and we've double checked the license cost. Larry, I think you put your hand up.
Yeah, that actually wears off quite closely into what's coming up in your list here towards the Project Oakdale, because effectively it gives you a license to build apps with a correct Teams license without additional costing. And looking from that point of view, that is a bit of a loophole because the API management allows the custom APIs and then connection to all sorts of data for free. Well, for free for correct Teams licensing. And then I would actually tread the usage of it with caution, as you mentioned.
It's a real interesting one because so if you take what you can do in Power Platform now, say you want to go connect to SQL Server, you need an enhanced license to do that. Whereas actually you could create an API, use API management, call the API management connector. It's free, right? You just paid for the development time. So it is getting around things. It's interesting to see where they'll go with that. And I guess you've already talked about the GitHub Actions. Oh, this for Power Apps. So at the moment there's actions in Azure DevOps to deploy Power Apps into your environments. They're now opening that up into GitHub Actions as well. So if you're using GitHub as your source control, then you can use that. Yes, Larry?
One more thing, the parity is not quite there yet between the DevOps and the GitHub, so it's probably going to take a while to come to the parity of it. And before, I've heard from some people saying that DevOps kind of deployment actions may even disappear as such and then get taken by GitHub. But as I said, the parity is not there yet.
Okay, yeah, that'd be quite a big jump. That would be Microsoft going with GitHub all the way. DevOps is the old thing that we used to use, but yeah, interesting.
Agreed.
I agree, Nick. So I guess moving on to Oakdale, really, I guess this was the big news of Oakdale being released to targeted tenants. I didn't actually realize that I had my dev tenant not on targeted release, and I turned it straight onto targeted release, and it was there straight away. So that was quite good. So if you're not checked, change to targeted tenants, targeted release, sorry, and you'll get it straight away. Yes, Daniel.
I think you need to develop a preview on as well, because I had it switched off, created an application with Power Apps, and it failed. And it wasn't until I worked out the had to develop a preview on that I was able to deploy different applications and those templates. You do it from your sort of person icon. Click down there, and you can touch it on. I think I've showed Simon the other day.
You did show me then. Yeah. Garry, Simon H is asking, what is Oakdale?
So Oakdale really is the data storage element. So this is kind of the renamed common data service. I think probably Larry is probably the person to talk about this from the Dynamics side.
Can I Right. Well, first of all, it's called Oakdale, Project Oakdale, because it is of course, the project internal name, and Oakdale is a location name which cannot be trademarked. Therefore, Microsoft kept on using that. By the history of it, of course. Now, what it is? It is a relational database, and that is the core meaning of it. So you can create relations between your tables, if you like, in SQL, or entities as we call them in CDS. It does have additional benefits of management and then the security that is already implemented there. The difference here between this one and CDS, the biggest difference, you cannot take it outside of Teams here. Of course, so you build the experience, the app building and the CDS information experiences all within Teams only. If you want to take it outside of the Teams and utilize as a standalone, still inside tenant-only apps, that is when you go onto the proper CDS. It has got a few more limitations, of course, compared to CDS itself. But yeah, it does give this relational database footing for it, and that was a long-awaited transition and the war between the CDS and SharePoint as a backend for Power Apps.
Yeah, I think the relational database, that's great. I think the caveats around where you can use it is something that we really need to make sure that we understand before we start using it. One of the things that I've seen as well, and this might be a bit of a governance nightmare, is when you create an app in Teams that uses Oakdale, it creates an environment just for that app. From if you've got policies that we want to set up, how you're going to manage that, that's going to be potentially quite difficult. To get data in and out, I think the only route at the moment is Power Automate with Oakdale. There's no other options. There's no API. So if you're a SharePoint developer wanting to do SharePoint framework web parts, you can't access that data in those tables. You might want to do that, you might not, but that's something to consider. But one of the things that I did think that I really liked about this, if you go and you have a play around with this, Microsoft have done some, sample apps. One of them is an inspection app, and you deploy it into your team, creates multiple tabs, does some really cool stuff. But I like the way that it integrates with Teams. It knows about its surroundings. It can get context from the channel that it's been viewed from as well, which I think is the next step from where we've been used to just kind of building a Power App and just throwing that into a tab. I think it's a much richer experience. But it'd be interesting to see where it goes. I mean, it's only new at the moment. And there's a few things that are good, things that are not so good, depending on which way you see it. But yeah, it's a real stake in the ground, I think, for Power Apps, Power Platform to be that Teams development platform. Yes, Daniel. Give your hand up.
No.
All right. Okay. Cool. Okay.
I do apologize for a bit. Also, it is a gateway drug to the proper CDS as well. The most expensive storage provided by Microsoft, as good as it is for what it does, but it is a gateway to the CDS as well. We find, and then people will utilize to its capabilities as it is, and but there will be some people who will be tempted to actually go to take the next step.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so I've just got a few screenshots. That's the Azure API management connector to basically call your APIs from a Power App. Yeah, here's the licensing for the Power Automate desktop. So $40 a month per user, or $150 a month for a bot to just leave it running and doing things in the background. So yeah, a bit more of a cost there for your legacy systems to keep it alive, is the way that I look at it.
Is that $40 on top of, so if you had Power Automate
Yeah.
Another. Well, okay.
Yeah, it's another, and here's the kind of the UI. So it's not like Power Automate. It's very different. It's built on Selenium, I think, was
Right.
which is a bit of it's an old technology really, as well. So it's yes, it can do the job, but again, I think you're just putting a patch over a problem. And it's an expensive patch.
I've had a quick go and I wasn't particularly enamoured with it, to be honest. It's still very. It's always had this thing about things having to happen at the right time and for it to be able to latch onto things, otherwise everything fails. And I think it's ever been thus. When you're trying to automate UI testing, it's always a pain.
Yeah. So I think Power BI, kind of already mentioned a couple of them, but there's a new Power BI app for Teams as well. So this is, previously there was just the tab. This is an actual personal app, so you can go to Power BI and pull out all of your reports. So it's a bit kind of like the Planner app, if you like, where you can kind of see across all the reports that you've got access to without having to go to the Power BI service. So it's a nice little addition. So here's the pipelines that you can set up for development, test, and production, and moving them through all the different environments. So it's nice to see that being added to Power BI. I'd like to see this actually added to Power Platform, to be quite honest, rather than Power BI, because I think it's got a bit more use. But it hopefully these all, if they've built it in one area, hopefully they're thinking about it for another. But yeah. And here's the GitHub Actions for Power Automate as well. And
sorry.
What?
Oh, is it? Sorry, that was an animation, is it?
Yeah, so there were some updates for the bot framework composer that they've just been added in for Power Virtual Agents. It's not something that I'd really looked at, to be honest. So if anyone else knows about updates to PVA, Larry, have you heard anything?
Well, I have taken the PL200 exam today.
Did you pass? Oh, that's a harsh question.
It's in beta. So the results will be in about 8 weeks or so, if I'm lucky. Well, I've not followed the specific news on this virtual agents have been kind of a very isolated item apart from the passing on the started conversations after development. But now you can include the Power Virtual Agents into solutions and pass them, develop them as a part of application lifecycle for the business applications mainly, I suppose. Although they can stand on their own as well. And then I think what they've given more access to the actual AI capabilities of the LUIS, the NLP, the text recognition on the keyword extraction and that sort of thing, to interact better. So that's probably as much as I will say today.
Cool. Right, do we go back to 8?
Are you on Cortex or Syntax? Ah, there.
Right, I'll have to flick through.
Sounds like Syntax, but what about Nintex?
Yeah.
UK too.
You went past it, Simon.
Oh, we got past it. All right.
I didn't know that. They've done that, have they?
Yeah.
That's interesting. This really is interesting.
One more. There we go. Got it. Right, well, I think we'll all probably have to contribute to this. So last year, Microsoft announced Project Cortex, and Syntax is the phase 1 deliverable. We were discussing before everybody joined us. I guess we were a little disappointed that it isn't more meaningful and more complete at this point, but at least they've got something out the door, if I'm being kind. So Syntax is definitively the first phase. They have got some pretty neat platform capabilities coming. So I think the key things are that you will be able to train it with your own documents so that it will then be able to understand those documents and then in future automatically ingest and categorize them. And for some organizations dealing with large quantities of stuff, that actually is a really big deal. Again, it's meant to be a no-code training process. We haven't seen it yet, but in theory, it's not something you need to pass over to IT to do. It can be handled by the content owners and the subject matter experts to do that. What else? I think they are intending that it will be able to pull out explicit metadata types, so not just categorize, but look for certain key elements and then apply that as metadata, which has been a dream of SharePoint for 20 years. So it'd be great to actually see that working. And then I guess coming along with that, you've got almost inevitably automatic sensitivity and retention labels that Microsoft have been throwing a lot of effort at for the last couple of years in order to drive compliance and other things that, well, I was going to say that big organizations need, but actually every organization needs to be able to manage things like record management around retention and deal with sensitivity. The kicker is, as with a few things we've mentioned already on this session, there are some pounds to pay. So it's a commercial add-on. It's available already. They're reckoning that it's a few pound per month. They were talking really about $5, which we know will probably end up being £5 for us, and only applicable to E3 and E5 licenses. There is also currently a limit on the number of processing minutes, so it's not well defined what that means. They said it's that you get 1 million processing minutes if you've got 300 or more users with the add-on, but we have no idea how quickly those million processing minutes get consumed right now. They are making trial plans available, so you can get out and play with it to find out if it's going to work. The suggestion that it's a trial plan may mean you even have to pay for the trial plan, but we don't know yet. Or I don't know yet. And they are promising further Cortex stuff to come. Larry, your hands up. Is that from last time or is that something new?
It is new. I do apologize. And I've been studying a bit of AI stuff and recently, and it is the capabilities effectively are already available on the platform. So the core idea of all of this must be that it is no code approach to accessing all of it. Rather than the new, it's not really a new capability as such. It's just how to access it. So, because I do apologize. I have taken the AI exam the other week as well. I did pass that one. It was just fundamentals, but as we going, as you were reading through all elements of the slide, effectively, the AI. In the AI builder, pretty much, or the machine learning modules in the worst case scenario, they are all already available.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, again, Microsoft have been doing a lot of work to try and enable AI without you needing to be a data scientist to do it. So things like automatic model selection are already built into some of these things. So, Garry.
Yeah, it's just following on what Larry said. It's brilliant because you weren't even involved in the conversation that we had earlier, yet you just exactly said what I was saying earlier, that, you know, the forms recognition is already there. If you want that capability, you can go to the Azure Forms Recognizer, start training the models that way. But it's this, you know, when things start to appear from Microsoft, they're all abstractions of things that probably already exist, and Project Syntax is a perfect example of that. But it's across SharePoint, Power Platform, of just trying to make it a little bit more accessible. But it's once you look under the hood, it's like, well, you can still make use of some of these things. So the cost is going to have to be, you know, worthwhile, because I'm sure there's quite a lot of companies will look at it and go, well, we'd like that forms recognizer bit, we'll just go off and use that. Yeah, I'm a little bit disappointed because I thought there'd be more, to be honest. But it seems like they've been waiting for different services to become available to then get to this point. I think managed metadata service, the updates that needed took a while. They've not been around for a while, and that was kind of, core to this core to Cortex, so to speak.
Did you see the demos, or did they see the demos of them training the model? Did anyone see that, where they took the contracts and they taught it? So what you had is a new site collection. It was like, I think it's called Content Center, and then you would build your model, and then you would upload your documents, and so you would upload positives, and then you'd upload some negatives, and then you train your model, and so they went through that process. We'll share some links to that, and then started to do the metadata extraction. So you would say, look for the word where it says, this contract is between, and then you'd grab the next bit of text, and that would be the company that was the, was the company in the contract, and then with so and so supplier, and that would be the supplier. So it's an interesting demo to sort of see, but it just does look very much like sort of really smart search,
I think one of the reasons why the pricing has not been because it runs on the machine learning, so it does utilize quite a lot of processing power. Microsoft are not quite sure what sort of utilization is going to take to do so. So it's going to be a bit of a finger in the air until they decide we need the number that actually makes us profit.
Yeah, I think so too. Cool. So that's what we know about that. But there's quite a lot of stuff that they're now announcing around it. So there's plenty more sort of demos, etc., online following Ignite. Then this is how that fits into the wider Cortex roadmap. So all the syntax stuff is, they say available soon. Some of it's available right now. So that's pretty interesting. It would be good to get our hands on and play with some of this. Again, even if it is only 60 pounds a year per user, organisations can go, well, we can have a lot of that for the price of a member of staff. So yeah. Then more syntax coming next year with some enhanced capabilities. They haven't really told us what they are. They've just put it on the roadmap. And of course, roadmap items are not committed. And then they're also talking about these top of minds, other things that they think they ought to be doing, so automated Q&A, etc. So I think the content assembly is interesting. There will come a point when you say, I need a proposal for this client that does this, includes these elements, and it will go and start building that from previous manual attempts. So it's not just about digesting, but it will be about creating. We'll have AI makers coming up in due course, which I think is pretty cool. Although it does make me wonder what some people are going to be doing for a living in 5 years' time.
Yeah, the bit that I really like the interconnected experiences, the ability to be able to hover over a topic in Outlook or Teams, and then being able to then get the topic experiences showing up. You get that card of who are the experts in this area, which document should you read. I think that's very exciting.
It's very ambitious.
Yeah,
that to me is the thing that got me about Cortex, was that bit, the data collection bit. You can do all sorts of different ways of doing that. It's how you presented it. If you're not presenting it in a useful way, then all the work that you're doing is kind of useless, isn't it? That's the key part of it for me.
Well, I guess I still have a concern about whether real people have the mindset to go exploring that kind of stuff, the same as most people didn't click forward on wikis and other things. But so we'll see. But nevertheless, for those people that really need to do this for a living, I think it's very powerful stuff. Right. Final slide. There was actually a couple of things really about SharePoint, not much, but there was a bit. We already mentioned that there's this home site app coming for Teams, so we might as well say it again. They're doing a bunch more stuff around news, especially the ability to sort of not just pin but prioritize news based on who you are, your role, and some other things like until it's been read, 17% of the staff leave it there. So there's some stuff coming on that. Some better sharing. They're trying to introduce some of these sort of mobile sharing experiences into the desktop. So I take a news item, I can share it to multiple endpoints. I don't actually know what the app bar is. Anyone know what the app bar is?
So the app bar is the new left-hand rail So you might have seen this if you go to portal.office.com. Everything's changed to the left-hand side. That's now coming into SharePoint. So combine that with the home app, you have a much more, I guess,
better navigation, isn't it?
A better navigation, or from the SharePoint perspective, and I think it's something that is going to be configurable as well for your organization. So you can kind of change things globally on there, but to have a consistent navigation.
Okay, and I guess that concept of a left rail is, we've seen it in Teams. It's trying to make those UI experiences consistent across all of the applications. So that's all right. I'm okay with that. Yeah, some pictures. So home site doesn't really tell us much yet, but you can see on the left-hand side there it is running inside Teams as you can just make out that top icon on the Teams left rail is the home site icon. Next slide.
It's then the news prioritization, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So put the stuff into SharePoint, and then do this boost function on the right hand side, set a bunch of settings, and then that will appear in the next slide, I think, if I recall. So same thing again, and then that same news. So go back one, please, Simon. So then that automated compilation of the news. So the moment you can go into news and go, I want this one, that one, and 2 of those, and add that to an email and send it out to people. This is going to start to do it automatically based on who you are and what is considered important content for you in your role. Which again, I'll kind of believe it when I see it in terms of how really effective it is. But I do think it's a good attempt. So pushing that into email, again pushing the key or the boosted news and the news roll-ups into Yammer. Templates. Oh, that's right. They're being able to pin your preferred news templates. You can add custom templates into all of the page libraries now, but they're starting to allow you to actually build richer experiences and embed those. Probably something more about that.
The templates is a bit more along the lines of the old site templates, but with site designs. So there are a few that are coming. So it looks like that this is going to be using the site actions, site designs, which we've already had. But is adding a more of a in-your-face approach for end users, that they can just go and pick from a nice gallery of, you want to set up a leadership site. You can use the inbuilt templates rather than potentially going out and using the PNP lookbook, provisioning the site and things. So this is more along the lines of, you are a site collection administrator and you want to apply a template to your site, and it will just go and add it in rather than provision it first with all the bits and pieces.
And my guess is this is strongly linked to the Teams templates are coming, because I want to include site designs with that.
You would think. They are two different
More about that in a future episode.
Yeah, the Teams templates, I think they're already there on targeted release again in the admin center. So these are more the, when you create a team and it says, do you want to clone a team?
Yeah.
Do you want to start from scratch? It's those kind of organizational level templates, which will say, here's a template that's relevant for projects, and you have certain channels and certain tabs, but it doesn't go.
But they're not going to provide page content in the SharePoint engine behind it. Well, that's a limitation. But,
for that, you would need a provisioning solution.
Yes. Oh well. Right.
I guess you have custom, because it's about being able to apply custom branding, isn't it? Keeping consistent corporate branding, I guess, as well.
Tony, you got your hand up, mate.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the Teams template stuff, I've had a look in the admin center. You can set them up, but I couldn't find a UI way of doing it, of creating a team off that template. Is it only through the graph at the moment that you can create them?
Yes, and that endpoint is not in version 1 either. It's in the beta endpoint. So it's been around for a while, but I think that there's been numerous announcements of probably they've been waiting to put that into general availability.
Yeah. Okay.
And again, just to round it up, we won't go through all of this, but this is just the published roadmap as it sits for SharePoint today. Again, we'll share the slide deck so you can read through these in more detail. Right, and a bit more about home sites. Same sort of story. There was very little about OneDrive that I saw on the entire Ignite, but there was a OneDrive roadmap that I managed to pull out. There's definitely quite a lot of activity around OneDrive. They're being a bit more honest about the fact that OneDrive is really just another part of SharePoint and vice versa. But there is quite a lot of stuff coming to OneDrive that we've already had in SharePoint and vice versa. So there you go. That's what we've got. And I'm not going to go through this slide in detail for now.
The one useful thing there seemed to be the ability to be able to link in content without actually putting it in OneDrive. They seem to be making much of that. It's kind of like old days.
Is that the add to OneDrive feature?
Yeah, where it doesn't reside in OneDrive, but you're linking to it. So you're using OneDrive as a kind of repository, a dynamic repository of things.
Okay, that's interesting if that's completely separate content. That does have some interesting use cases. I still think it's bonkers that I can't add OneDrive content into a Teams library, but anyway. Right, where are we going to go next? Dylan, you wanted to talk about Stream, I think.
Okay, if you fire up the slide.
Shout when if I've gone past it. Teams.
Hey, go back.
So I guess the big news is that maybe Teams isn't going to be shit anymore. So obviously it used to be a bit of an embarrassing product, really, in the sense that you'd show it to people and they'd look at you as if they were expecting to see something more. And the problem is you couldn't show them much more. So it's going to be integrated so it actually stores things in SharePoint, which is good. So you can actually be able to share it externally, which is obviously an improvement. And you can have things like retention policies and all the things you couldn't do before, which is great because once it's part of SharePoint, then we know all the patterns for sharing things externally, internally, and getting rid of things and all that sort of stuff. So it's actually being brought in, which makes a lot of sense, really. It's where it should have been to begin with. And as Garry has pointed out, there will actually be some APIs, so you could do something with it because it used to just live on its own and you couldn't integrate it with a Power Platform. So it should, I guess you could say that it's been brought into the rest of Office in the sense it's no longer this isolated island that you couldn't get to, which is fantastic. I'm just looking at a slide here that I found on the internet where I've just shared it, and it mentions something which is rather ambiguous, where it says playback quality and scale matching Microsoft Stream Classic. Does that mean that the first version isn't necessarily going to have the same playback quality as the classic version of Stream, or does it mean they're going to be working on it? It's a bit of an ambiguous statement because I've seen a couple of slides where they sort of mention playback quality as if it's not going to come right away. I believe there's another roadmap that shows
keep the volume down all day.
So sorry. Hold on, Charlie, I'm in the middle of something. Charlie, okay. Right, sorry about that. I just an interruption from the audience. So sorry, where were we before we had a pitch invasion? I think that's about it that we can say with Stream, really, that we might actually have a usable product that's not something that we feel is a nice idea but not quite implemented yet.
I think we found a bug in Teams that if you're streaming PowerPoint content and you click on a comment with an image, it crashes Teams. Anyway.
Oh, okay.
There's a roadmap there as well to stream.
Yeah, there was definitely something. Yeah, it says playback quality there. You can see it under Q2 2021 about playback quality, which I'm curious as to what that actually means. That sort of suggests that maybe the playback quality at first in the new look stream may not necessarily be any good, but we'll have to see.
It's interesting, isn't it? If you look in the available soon, CDN support then is for larger bit rated videos. Azure Media Services kind of creates, what is it, 20 different file formats. So I wonder if they've kind of said, oh, well, we'll do only a subset of that maybe, so not eating up all your space.
Yeah, because obviously if you had the every single bit rate and every single variation, you're going to chew through your 1 terabyte very, very quickly, aren't you? So
yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how it comes out of your storage.
I've just put a link in the chat. Actually, you can now actually turn this on. There's a few PowerShell commands, and you can enable it on your tenant. So if you've got a dev tenant, it's probably a good opportunity to start recording away, see what happens.
Blow through all that storage.
Yeah.
So I guess that's about it for streams. So we'll get on the next bit.
I'm having to click more now. So what's next? Do we want to do Microsoft lists? Do we want to do search? Any takers?
I mean, I could be biased, and I'd love to do the Logic Apps one because I think this is a huge announcement.
So we're going to Azure.
Yeah. So let's do the well, actually, let's run through this. So first thing, serverless for Cosmos DB. So this is a great move because this really now enables Cosmos DB to be used for lightweight applications, because the cost is quite high for Cosmos. It's supposed to be, global availability and all that greatness, but you've got to pay for it. So this is now designed at smaller applications, so it becomes a bit more as an alternative to maybe using SQL for smaller apps. A very small update for blob storage. They're now adding in lifecycle management in there, so you can do expiration of, if you're using blob storage as your files, things like that, for maybe alternatives for your network drives. You can set lifecycle policies on that for obviously retention. This one's quite a big move as well, as your resource mover. So you've never been able to just move things from one resource group to another easily within different regions. Now you can just pick that up and move it, which is great if someone's gone and created an app in America and you need to bring that back to the UK, and data residency laws, when they all apply, it's making it a bit less frictionless movement, hopefully, in the cloud. Azure Communication Service, this is almost like bring your own teams. This is if you've got a website and you want to set up kind of like one-to-one video meetings with your customers. You can have a Teams-like experience, but through your website using ACS. So I think it was kind of a small announcement, but I think there's a hell of a lot of use cases for that. I think healthcare is one of them that's been kind of highlighted, although Teams has been highlighted as an option for that as well. But the last two for me were the big announcements for integration: Logic Apps and Functions. So Logic Apps V2, so it's a completely new platform, if you like. Comes with a new UI designer. So if you've not kind of used Logic Apps before and using Power Automate is using Logic Apps under the hood. But one of the big differences is it's changed the runtime that it actually sits on. So it's now moving to Azure Functions runtime, which is a big move because that opens up the ability to do local development of Logic Apps. So you do local development of no-code workflows in Visual Studio Code. Now, because you can run that locally and it's running on the runtime, you can now deploy Logic Apps on premises, which you've never been able to do before, just because of that change in the runtime. And I really this kind of got my attention because of its relationship with Power Automate as well. In that, what does that mean for Power Automate if Logic Apps is taking another direction? Are we going to see another version of Power Automate coming? What does that mean for licensing? Does it mean that the cost goes down potentially? We don't really know at this stage, but by looking at the things that are happening in Azure, they will most likely have an impact on what the Power Platform is going to be doing, because Power Platform are just reusing Azure services and they'll be having bills to pay. That to me was a big question mark. Yes, Dylan.
It's a fascinating idea that running a Logic app locally means you're incurring a service cost, even though it's running on your own tin, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, there's interesting things that you get the ability to run that workflow, but everything else you've got to do yourself. So all the security, all the authentication as well, unless you go into cloud services. If you want to reuse on-prem applications and connect to that, you've still got all that work to do yourself, whereas running it in the cloud, you don't have to. Microsoft's kind of taking that burden away from you. Yes, Simon.
So two things. Does it mean that Power Automate could come to SharePoint on-prem? And then two, the local development, like I always struggle with Logic Apps and local development, because you end up having things like ngrok and things like that to be able to kind of use them. It will make life a lot easier to develop Logic Apps. Maybe I wonder if we'll have a Power App in a container as well, so then it will be truly on-prem. You have the Power Platform on-prem.
I mean, it opens up those possibilities of what could happen in the future, like Power Automate on-prem. That'd be amazing, right? How many people are going to jump for that? Loads. I think Daniel, you've got your hand up. Was that an error?
Daniel muted as well.
Is there a preview for this?
Yes. Yeah, it was released. There's a whole article of how you can get set up. I can find that actually. I didn't put it in the. So the one thing is you can't actually create these in the Azure portal at the moment. You've got to create it locally and then publish it. Yeah, I'll put the link in the chat.
Okay.
So the one thing about this as well, they've opened up different types of workflows. So you've got stateless and stateful flows, or apps. So sorry. So there's ways of having the stateless apps run quicker. There's not as much kind of there's obviously not that state to manage. So you can build Logic apps that are a bit more lightweight, which again, we didn't have the possibility of doing that at the moment. But on the flip side, with Azure Functions, what I noticed was Azure Functions were getting the possibility to add connectors, which was again, hang on a second. So Logic Apps is now is running on the same runtime as Azure Functions, whilst Azure Functions gets features that were in Logic Apps. So where this is going to end up, I mean, it could be just one integration platform rather than having two, which may be the end goal. But again, we don't know at the moment, but it's quite an exciting announcement for me of the ramifications of what changing the technology could have.
It takes people on the just as a developer to the pro developer, doesn't it? It takes that journey. So you start off in one and then go into the other. And that's where this unified platform can come in.
Yeah, I think this has been driven from developers loving to use Azure Functions because it's code, but then missing out on the ability to have no code solutions, but running it in, I'd say, a more enterprise level service than Power Automate. So I think bringing them closer together just kind of opens the options up. I always look at them as 2, I want to use Logic Apps and Azure Functions, not either or, because they both have their own kind of benefits, and they work better together, I think. Whereas a lot of people miss Logic Apps and go straight to Functions. So I think it's a good move.
Yeah, agreed, definitely.
And yeah, so this is the new UI designer. So again, if this is changing, will this then eventually get into Power Automate as well? And what features are we going to get? Actually, there's one thing in this. So in the current Logic Apps, you have to have an integration service environment to use the JavaScript custom action. Now, I don't know whether this is true or not, but if you're running on top of the Azure Functions runtime, can you just write code in your no-code workflow when you need it, and it just runs without having to have another dependency? That I need to test, but that would be amazing if that's the case, because then you could almost not need Azure Functions to do some of the more complicated things that you might not want to do in a number of custom actions in Logic Apps.
Sort of going back to classic Visual Studio workflows, aren't we? Where we can build like code activities and stuff. Yeah, nice.
Don't tell us that's where we're going to end up. I think that's it for that one. Yeah, that's the Visual Studio extension.
This was another following on Azure, wasn't it? The Azure Orbital. You could have, data centers in space, is it? And be able to have a data center on a satellite. I don't know who did this slide, but sounds like an interesting idea. This is them Microsoft showing off, isn't it? They've got 61 data centers, more than anybody else. It's impressive how many they've got now. Right.
It's interesting with the data centers approach, because I remember being in a session that was talking about Azure Stack and how Microsoft were, it was almost pointless now adding extra data centers because they're pretty much everywhere in the, I guess, most regions, and that Azure Stack was going to be the way to get more data centers in more rural locations, because you can literally put a box down, connect it up, and you get Azure Local. So it's interesting that I've not, since the session I sat in, I've not heard anything of it really. They've now gone, no, we'll just put them in the sky. It's fine.
Well, did you see any of the? We're not covering this, but the IoT side where they've got an Azure, like a small Azure stack for IoT. So the idea then you could put in this sort of edge stack which would do all your IoT processing, and it had cognitive services in there, and they showed a demo of a building in New York, I think it was, for COVID, and it was watching the video and measuring the distance between people, and if were they 2 meters or 1 meter, so you could then make sure that people were sort of working in a safe place. So it's interesting where that sort of stack technology is moving to these sort of these solutions.
I had a chat with the Stack people last year, not this obviously. I had a chat with some of the engineers. It was interesting that the technology was just a given. It mostly become a hardware and logistics exercise. And the question was, how big do you want your stack to be physically? Do you need 30 processors or 30,000? And that just determined the size of the block that they shipped to you. And you could rent it as well. So you could say, well, I need it for a week. We go, right, we'll ship it to you beyond the container tomorrow. You'll get it set up, spun up, do your thing, ship the container back to us. And some of them were the size of a briefcase, and some of them were the size of a shipping container.
Wow.
Yeah.
You rent all sorts of other equipment, so why not a stack? You rent a container with a pump in, so why not actually have a data center turn up in the same way?
Yep. Yeah, really interesting.
Data center as a service. I like that.
All right, where are we going next? Search, Yammer, lists, Edge.
go lists. It's quick, I think.
Lists, definitely.
Not for me flicking through. It's not.
We need to figure out why that isn't working. So anyway, it is what it is.
It's like being in the Matrix.
There
That's
you
what
go.
it is. Just consuming it.
Right, so lists is kind of out there. It's appeared in all of my tenants now, so lists is a real thing. They have promised, this is came up just the other day, but some improvement to large lists, but they haven't been very specific from what I've heard around that. They've also, probably more importantly, promised the ability to take lists offline and have them cached locally. So that's pretty useful. Garry, I think you guys talked about a bit of this in your podcast the other day. So do you want to pick up the other 3 items?
Yeah, so I guess this was just kind of thinking of how they could implement this, and it felt to me that this would be an app. So something like a progressive web app, a bit like Outlook is at the moment. If you're using Outlook Web, you can basically just hit the button and it installs it as an app on your machine, and then it takes on kind of the more native kind of features from the operating system that you're working on. But I think the good thing about this was it seemed to me that it was a sync engine, so that it would basically be constantly downloading that local cache. So when you're filtering, it would filter it locally and then present that on the screen, rather than the server having to do the work. It's basically bringing everything down. That's how you then end up getting the offline viewing and editing, because you're essentially just connecting back up and it's pushing the data up, looking for changes. I mean, it was a great announcement, because I'm working on a project that has a lot of items in it, and I thought, this is great. But then I looked at the numbers. So my use case was 260,000 items, but you can have 30 million rows in a SharePoint list. Like, that's the top end. So this apparently was created as direct feedback from customers. So I'm really interested to see where does it get to the point where the performance starts to degrade so much that you're thinking about having a full sync engine. I mean, I don't think it's because of the 5,000 limit, which we're all accustomed to. It's much higher than that, but I like the idea of it, and I think it has some great uses. I think my only worry would be, how good is the sync engine and how can it deal with conflicts?
It's going to use OneDrive technology, isn't it, to do that's what it's using, and it's using the SQLite locally.
And differential sync.
Yeah, so it will be interesting. So yes, you can take documents offline now, can't you, and then sort of moving that to lists as well. And can you and then this idea of you be able to expose the API, does that allow custom developers to hook in to be able to cache data? Be interesting to see.
It's funny because we talked about Oakdale and the whole not putting data in SharePoint and putting it in a CDS like thing, and yet we're here with Microsoft Lists going, oh, chuck all your data in Microsoft Lists, which is SharePoint. It seems a bit strange. I mean, the use cases are different, but I mean, I've really not looked at lists that much. I've kind of seen it as, it's the same technology that we've seen, just wrapped up slightly differently. So the use cases are different, but I'm just wondering, would Microsoft Lists have kind of lists that big that would really need this? So I'd be more interested from the SharePoint side rather than the list side, but I don't know.
Be useful on the train journey where you have intermittent Wi-Fi. Not that I've been on a long train journey for a long time.
What are trains? What's a journey? Yeah, maybe it's one of those things that great idea, executed at the wrong time. But
maybe it's competition, the SharePoint team's answer to Oakdale.
Possibly, yeah.
Right. What have we got left? Search. So I must admit, I'm quite excited about these Microsoft Graph connectors. I think there's going to be some really interesting solutions. So they've talked about search connectors, sort of in previous Ignites and Build. They've now rebranded them as Microsoft Graph connectors, and it's this ability to be able to create an index, a custom index, and be able to, build an engine to be able to consume your line of business application or your custom application, and then enable search to be able to then surface that content in SharePoint and sorry, I should say in Microsoft 365. I think it's a really, I think there'll be some really interesting use cases for this. That's about as much as I know on search. I haven't looked at the cognitive side.
I think it's good that it's just easier to connect to different services. So I think they released a number of third-party connectors. So I think ServiceNow was one of them.
Yes, it
and
was,
basically you can just plug search straight in and it'll just start indexing. I think there's limits on how much you can index, but I think it was very much this plug and play approach. And I think we talked about Teams search changing and using Microsoft Search. We've seen it slowly, haven't we, with SharePoint kind of getting into Microsoft Search and this Microsoft Search thing being the one thing that everyone goes to, whether you're on Office, on your desktop, whether in SharePoint, whether in Teams. So it's been good seeing it. I think it's been in beta for quite a while. So to see it actually go to GA is definitely good. So I think we'll probably hear a lot more of this in the next, I guess, weeks and months as people start to really use it now in production.
So who put this?
I put this slide in, so they promised that there's a new search layout designer, and this is kind of what it looks like. So not exactly rocket science, but at least you don't have to write your layouts in code.
Yeah,
I really do hope this is adaptive cards and not something else.
It looks more like adaptive cards, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, we've been, we have been asking for this for a long time, haven't we? To be able to customize that the search experience, being able to create search verticals. So I think it's great that this is come along. When we've been talking about the maturity model, this Microsoft 365 maturity model, for me, search is a really good way of starting to get quick wins out of the information that's out there. And so it's great that you can now customize this sort of out of the box when this comes out, I guess.
Cool.
Sorry, what was the stance with the PMP search and using the search to talk about Ignite? Should we be using the PMP search still?
I guess it's the alternative, isn't it? You still can't amend the search pages for SharePoint. So if you want a search center, it's still, I guess, the only thing out there apart from rolling your own. Kind of doing your own developing. Yeah.
They're just Apple bar templates, aren't they?
Yeah. So I think that's probably the way to go at the moment if you want to do the classic search centers and have, a bit more of your own customized search. I think the Microsoft search approach is very much going to be set up the template kind of thing, and not be able to change like your search verticals and your refiners and things that you've had before.
And the personal searches, because you can use a lot of those in the PMP search, can't you? Profile information, etc.
Yeah, I guess it's all coming from what's in search, isn't it? What's in index. So your people profiles are being indexed by SharePoint Search, so then that's going into Microsoft Search as well. But I think Microsoft Search is definitely the the content connectors. There's so many different services that you can connect to. Like SQL Server. So if you've just got sales database somewhere, connect into that, get that into your search. make that a bit more visible, rather than having to go to all these individual different systems. Just have one place to find it all.
Yeah, that's cool. That. Wow.
Has anyone used the new Yammer yet?
No, I haven't.
So we've turned it on recently in our company organization. It's just the same. it's just a bit of a branding exercise. I mean, there's new reactions and things, but yeah, the UI is very similar. It's just been refined a bit. I guess you've got external guest access, which is good. So that's a new way. A little bit of branding, which I think people have been asking for ages. Bit more in-depth analytics. So you can do a bit more like you put a post out, how much recognition has it actually got? Those kind of things, which is better. But they did announce recently a delegated post. So like a PA could post as a C-level executive, which just kind of for me just kills the whole Yammer thing. It's like, if you want to do that, don't use it, because it's not you. Yammer is supposed to be there as a all company communication tool. If you know that there's other people doing your posts, that's not really going to help your adoption, I don't think. But there's features coming. It's nice to see a bit of a refresh, but yeah, bit underwhelming for me.
I think they've always pitched it as being a CEO medium, aren't they? So the delegation's necessary because senior executives are too busy or too bad at typing to actually do these things.
Yeah, but ironically, they're the people who need to be involved to really push it, right? Top down. So yeah, a bit strange on that one, but yeah, good improvements, but the year of Yammer again, not so sure.
Just showing some examples. Only this is the reactions.
Yeah, there's your analytics that you get a bit more now, rather than just a number.
In fairness to Yammer, the mobile app is very good. It is natively mobile rather than something that's been shoehorned into it.
Yeah, that's not too bad. I think the updates are very much that on the face of it, from what I've seen, is very much just UI driven. I think everything else is still the same.
Right, what have we got left? Edge.
Yeah, that's a one slider.
Oh, actually, I've gone the wrong way, haven't I?
Yeah.
Can I go back to the start? No. Oh,
Yeah.
Try pressing the end button.
I will try that. No,
this is where you regret clicking all those times.
There we go.
Yes, I put this one in, Edge on Linux, which is interesting to see Microsoft pushing things to Linux, because they push Teams as well. So you got the Teams client on there, and now you've got Edge. Yeah, it's kind of interesting the way that they're going at Linux. I think this is going to be in part to Azure, and the Linux usage in VMs is probably one of the highest. So they're keeping the non-Microsoft people happy, as long as they're spending the money in the cloud, I think. But yeah, interesting to see Microsoft pushing this out.
There are even murmurings that at some point Windows will merely be a layer on top of Linux. now.
Okay.
I don't know whether that's a reality or just something being put about by those religious Linux fanatics, but it is an interesting thought. Certainly, Microsoft is very much not anti-Linux anymore. In fact, I think they'd rather go Linux than go Mac in many ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the other thing I think is interesting about Edge is now that it's on the Chromium engine, they're doing a lot around data loss prevention. This is something I added in. So being able to really, manage what users can open and do within Edge. And then those hooks are going to be applied to all your platforms. So suddenly you can have a lot of control as an administrator on Edge, which is quite interesting because you don't have that with other platforms like Chrome or Safari. So that really will help corporations manage their governance and the security side. So
I guess it's the reminder of IE11 is going away next year. It's been announced. Teams will stop working with IE11, Edge, and these features being added like DLP, and there's a few other. I think there's like an IE legacy mode or whatever being added into it to get people moving across to Edge as being the browser that they need to move to from a security point of view. So always good. They're doing a lot of work on the Edge side. I think it's very easy to look at it as just, it's a Chrome clone, but it really isn't. There's tons of extra features in there.
Yeah.
Doesn't work well with Dynamics, unfortunately. I've found that there's a few things that works in Chrome, but not with Dynamics. But it's my main browser. Yeah, I've noticed some weirdnesses, and if you run it in Chrome, it's okay. It's quite frustrating, actually.
Yeah. That's ridiculous. Right. Is that us done?
I guess to follow on from that. So I've been using WSL2, and up till recently you had to be on the developer preview of Windows. They've now managed to backport it, which is a bit weird. So if you're on just the latest version of Windows, which I think 1903, I think it is missing a number of there, you can just install WSL2, so you can have Linux running on your Windows machine almost natively, which is pretty cool if you're doing SharePoint framework development. You can get some good performance and increases out of that. So I've been using it, WSL1 and WSL2, and it works really well, nicely integrated into Windows. It doesn't feel like it's completely separate. I think with Visual Studio Code, what I really like about it is you can open Visual Studio Code from Linux and it will keep running in Linux. It'll open it up as a remote container. So when you're developing and running code, it's running in there, which I think is quite nice. So this, Windows and Linux blurring the lines, this is, blurring it even more, that you can be running Ubuntu and running code whilst having your Windows desktop and not knowing any different, really.
How do I go about installing that, Garry?
You can.
Is it just a native download from somewhere on Microsoft, or is there something more to it than that?
So you can actually go to the store, the Microsoft Store, and go and get Ubuntu and install it, and that's it.
Pretty neat, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fairly straightforward, which is strange for Microsoft. But yeah, they've done a really good job with this. If you use the new Windows terminal as well, that makes it even easier to get into that. But yeah, you're making the point about Microsoft moving to maybe a Linux world, is that Microsoft are part of the Linux Foundation now. They have their own version of Linux that they run their VMs on. It's going to happen, and I think that as we've seen over the last few years, Windows isn't the be-all and end-all for Microsoft anymore.
Right.
It's about services. It's about the cloud, and with Satya Nadella taking over, I think that went even more because he is a cloud guy.
And I was just pinging Dylan about this. I mean, right now it's dubious whether Windows is a profit center for them anymore, and in future it'll definitely be a cost center, not a profit center. So I can see them going, we just need to get off operating systems on desktops isn't where we're at anymore, and we're not really there in the cloud either as an operating system. So let's do something different. So you can see it happening.
Definitely.
It still just feels weird if you've been watching Microsoft for many years, though. After Steve Ballmer's tirades against Linux.
Yep. But as I keep telling people, things change, and if you can't learn that this year of all years, then there's no hope for that.
So I think that was it.
I think there might have been one last slide on there, or maybe two.
This is the last slide. This is the slide 60. Go on. Of course, I can't go to slide 1. I have to go all the way back. Goodness me.
Yeah, I think we have. Did we cover Power BI?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it's been so long. Our 60-minute session has taken so long. I've lost the will to remember. So, cool.
Good work.
So have we shared the link to this PowerPoint anywhere?
I need to. Yeah, I'll put that somewhere. Because I don't think I can't load it straight up into Meetup, can I? Don't think. Anyway, we'll sort that out. We'll get that shared. Yeah, no, I can't. I'll get that shared and then uploaded.
Yeah, because I can't, or we can't provide an anonymous link, but you could. So. Cool.
Yeah, I don't do anonymous links in my tenant. But I'll get it somewhere. So we need to do we need to hand out this all access pass to a lucky winner. So should we just do that sort of offline, and the lucky winner will get an email?
Well, how many people have we got on the call at the moment? How can I get that?
We've got 10 minus 4, so 6 of us.
Yeah, 6.
So I have a D6 in front of me. I have a D10 if you prefer, but I have a D6-sided dice. I can simply roll it and see what we get.
You need to number everyone first.
Or I could just do it based on the order across the screen, ignoring those of us who were ineligible to enter. So according to my screen, we've got JS, CL, P, JB, DW, ignore Dylan, got JT, ignore Simon, and then Garry and I. So I can just count across. And here's the dice. It's a shiny, brand new, never before used purple dice. And the number is number 1, which is...
Is that Jonathan?
Jonathan. That was exciting.
Oh.
Well done, Jonathan.
Well done. Hey. All right. Cool. I will. I apparently what I have to do is we have to email you your Jonathan. If you can drop me your email, I'll get in touch with you, and we just need to email them with your email address, and they will send you your access pass.
That's fantastic. Cheers, guys.
And I want to thank everyone for coming. We had a great turnout tonight, and yeah, there was a lot there. I think it was a terrific team effort by the user group team to pull all this stuff together from our various interests and activities. So great, well done, everyone.
Oh, thank you, Simon. I think you've done the lion's share there, to be fair, and Garry.
Yes, there was a oh blimey, that's a lot of slides someone's just put in.
Yes, I heard of those slides.
Yes, there's a good bulk put in there, Simon. It's a good effort.
So what would people like to hear about next? I think that's the thing.
Logic Apps V2 in depth. That's very exciting. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's something I definitely need to get my hands on. But as of yet, the things are getting in the way. But I think at the moment it's one of those things that it is quite early. It's not for production. They actually state that, so they're letting people look at it, but saying don't use it too much. But it is exciting to see what's coming. I think over the next few weeks, it'll be interesting to see what Oakdale and the team's Power Apps, to be honest, will be doing. I quite like what I've seen of it so far. You know, there's a number of things that I'd like to see of that, especially the API management integration as well. Hoping that it's as good as I think it is.
I think it is. I think it will be. Yeah, we'll see. So I guess that might take a bit of time to pull that session together. So is there anything else which you... Go on, sorry, Dylan.
I've got one on retention. It is a really boring subject, but it's a necessary one. So if nobody can think of a better one, I'll have to do that. So you definitely need to think of a better one.
Well, I need to get my head around retention and labeling for a client. So if you want to do that, I won't say no. I'll pick your brain.
Okay. It is really boring, though. I'm afraid it's really hard to make it interactive and fun. It's just not an interesting topic, but it's necessary.
It'd be good to do it as a workshop so we can actually apply it to our businesses on the fly.
Yeah, although one of the things I say is you actually need to think this thing through first rather than do it on the hoof.
Okay. I'm sure whatever you decide, it will be amazing.
Dylan.
What's that, sorry?
I said, where's the fun in that? If you can't do it just on the fly, where's the fun in that? Just make it up as you go along, don't you?
Yeah, just not on a live tenant. Especially when it goes and deletes everything up beyond a certain age. So, you know, you kind of do things that are hard to reverse.
Right, are we going to do a PowerPoint thing, power drink, whatever, SharePoint?
Oh yeah, excellent idea. Oh, I've completely forgotten about the option to do that. I'm going to go and get myself a beer because I'm desperate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, have a nice beer, all. I'm gonna call it a night.
Yeah, me too.
I will rejoin. I just need to get some booze.
See you next time.
Cheers all. Thanks very much for
all.
coming.
Thanks for the session.
Catch you later. Excellent session, by the way. It's really good.
Right.
Cheers, Dad. See you later.
Yeah, she just wants to talk through her financial musings. As,
Okay, so she's better with you on that.
She's definitely put some effort into planning her. One great hair. Yeah, so she just wanted to talk stuff through, but she reckons that if she manages to save what she thinks she's going to save, the amount of time that she's going to be doing her PhD and getting funding, she's going to have a 40 grand deposit to put down on the house.
Good God.
Okay.
You're paying her too much. Good for her.
Well, I mean, that'll include the government top up
Yeah.
on her ELISA, but
Yeah. Cracking. Yeah. It's good because she could have chosen to lean on us for everything and we'd have probably done that. It's much better for her to do it on her own steam and then come to us for help, advice and bailouts if necessary.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I don't want to drink. I'm going to try and not.
Okay.
I've got to lose this spare tyre around the waist somewhere.
You haven't got to stay tired.
I am.
But we both are slightly chubbier than we need to be. Neither is are obese or clinically dangerous.
No.
Can I
The
bring
tennis
you-
was rained off.
Yeah, that's very sad.
Yeah.
Come and play squash with me tomorrow. Is there anything else I can bring you?
No, I think I'm okay.
Alrighty.
Are you coming back up when you?
I am, but not for a great deal of time. It's a relatively short social and then we'll be stopping. outside lights haven't come on. There's a reason for that, but I need to fix it. It's because if this then which I was using to power those things has decided they're removing all of the, well, basically almost all the free stuff, and I wasn't going to pay them $10 a month.
No.
Right. What interesting beer are you on tonight then, Dylan? Are you on mute as usual?
It's some red wine left over from the weekend. Not an interesting brew.
You have red wine left over from a weekend. How does that happen?
Masterful self-discipline.
Insufficient liver function.
Or poor timing on opening up another bottle.
Tonight I seem to be drinking a coconut and chocolate stout. So let's see what that's like. Well, it's unusual. I love chocolate, but I don't like chocolate stouts for the most part. I'd rather have chocolate.
Yeah, after a flirtation with hoppy beer, which became an arms race of hoppiness, I've actually gone back to trying a few stouts because the sort of brewdog type thing has just gone too far.
Yeah, I agree. It's like who can eat the hottest curry?
Yes, and I usually like a golden beer with a bit of hoppiness, but they've taken that argument to its logical extreme.
Yes, so I've also been drinking quite a few more stouts of late. Again, I really like some of the ones that Great Newton Brewery are doing. And they've reintroduced mild. I love mild, and used to be my drink of choice back in my 20s probably. But then it
not many people would ever say that about mild.
Yeah, really good. Seem to have picked up a splinter. Yeah.
So I guess we could stop sharing the slide deck at the moment. It's still sitting there staring at us, isn't it? But yeah, it's definitely getting to the season when it's appropriate to drink those sort of beers.
Yes, that's right. Yes, we had the stove going on the boat basically every day last week. Even on the nice sunny days, it was still nice to have the stove just ticking over. So yeah, the winter's coming.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting winter. That's all I can say. Yes,
because the trouble is going into it with the lockdown still in place. Whereas before you had sort of a couple of months of basically being kind of locked inside, but you knew that spring was coming. This way, going into it, knowing that we've got 4 or 5 months of winter ahead.
Yeah, and I think it's starting to fray people's mental health now, isn't it? In the sense of it's the inevitability of it, and the fact it's just going on forever, I think, is getting to people.
Yeah,
there's definitely a certain amount of fatigue.
Yes, I certainly am observing it. So, yeah, but it is what it is.
It is. It's interesting. I think that's sort of led to the rise of these various conspiracy theories and things, because people would prefer to think it's a conspiracy rather than admit that basically life is shit at the moment, and governments aren't particularly good at dealing with this.
Well, I mean, yes, governments are particularly good, but there is no easy solution to it either. You know, whether it's a good government or a bad government or the US, you're still in a screwed up position. So,
yeah. There's definitely degrees of competence, though. It does seem to be that a technocratic government tends to do better, and ironically, female-led governments have tended to do better. There's a statistical correlation there.
Wonder why that is.
Don't know. It's possibly that populism is extremely inefficient at handling it. It's not that these other ones have done well. It's just they've done less bad.
Yes, I think there's a whole bucket load of truth in that. Populism, yes, ruled by the majority, where the majority is stupid.
Yes.
But we should probably turn the recording off on that basis, because I'll probably say things that would get me indicted.
Certainly, next time you go to the US, you might. And how do you explain this recording?
I think the US already know that I have a particular position on many of their social and cultural choices. I've got a new icon. I've got an icon that says "Take Control." Isn't that what Boris does? Huh.
Oh yes, it's take back control, no less.
Oh yeah. I can prevent participants from moving through the shared presentation.
I can.
Actually,
it's changed now. I can walk through the presentation myself as well. To the presenter is 8, and everybody else. That's why the delay was happening, because basically everybody else the message was going slowly.
This is what Simon was using, and it's why we weren't able to do the keyboard jumps, because he wasn't sharing PowerPoint. He was running PowerPoint within the presentation, within the meeting. Interesting.
Yeah. I was going to say. It also was hanging. It was hanging if I clicked on a message and then with an image, it completely hung Teams.
What happens
is
you
you
download
going on with images in chat windows. So for the last couple of weeks, I haven't been able to upload images into chat on my own tenant. I can upload them into the file section and add them from there, but you just can't drag or upload into or attach into the chat. So there's some problem going on somewhere.
It's interesting actually, because if you share the screen, you just share PowerPoint as a contents of a screen, and I think you get around the lag, because this one, when you share a PowerPoint in this way, it actually says uploading, so the file gets sent to everybody and it sends commands to everybody's screen to synchronize.
Oh, what it's doing. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
And it obviously doesn't synchronize particularly well.
No.
Because it ought to, in theory, be quicker, because it has to do is say go to the next slide as opposed to render the whole slide, but that isn't working.
Yeah, because I remember trying to study how this stuff works in detail, because I got, the idea of putting the video of yourself over the screen. I tried to do that with OBS, but it's when you share a screen that contains a PowerPoint, it's so fuzzy because Teams is optimized towards